Today we're reviewing the first 3 episodes of Taylor Sheridan's new show on Paramount Plus, Special Ops Lioness. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Taylor Sheridan, you must live under a rock because he's from 1883, or he created 1883. He created 1923 Yellowstone, Tulsa King, Mayor of Kingston. A lot of work with Paramount Plus in the past.
Yes, and like you said, we've covered a lot of him, so I thought that the best game to do would be true or false.
Yes.
5 facts, and whichever one of these are true, we've said in previous podcasts before.
Okay,
so
all right.
You might be able to get all these.
I'm ready.
We'll
Let's begin.
So aside from 1923, Sheridan only has one other Yellowstone spinoff in production titled Lawman Bass Reeves.
Bass Reeves?
Yeah.
Okay. No, the thing is, I thought that he had another 40 years. I thought they were doing 40 years in every direction for like all time. So I'll say false.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
We've mentioned before that he's supposed to be doing another Yellowstone spinoff titled 6666. The Bass Reeves Show was originally titled 1883, The Bass Reeves Story, and then they decided to change it. But yes, like you're saying, there's multiple spinoffs in the works.
Okay.
The next one is Yellowstone was the first TV pilot he ever wrote in 2011.
Oh, that feels like a trick question. I will go with true, though.
It was actually Mayor of Kingstown. That was the first pilot that he wrote in 2011.
That makes sense. It just didn't get produced until much later.
The third one was, in our best of episodes for 2020, you put Yellowstone at number 6.
Okay. I do remember enjoying that episode. Did I enjoy it enough to... This was 3 years ago? Mm-hmm. I'll say false.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
You had it at number 8. Your number 6 pick was The Expanse, the season 5 premiere.
Okay.
2 more to go. As an actor, he read over 10,000 scripts at the time.
Yes. I mean, he was like right on it. Yeah.
You told me that during the Mayor of Kingstown podcast. That is correct. And then the last one is, for 1883 and 1923, Taylor Sheridan made it mandatory that the cast do at least 2 weeks of cowboy camp.
There was cowboy camp, but I'm not sure if it was for both shows. I'll say true, though.
Yes, and I said that during the 1923 podcast. My first question is, this or Citadel?
Oh, okay. So the trivia game's over. We're switching gears into podcast mode. And your first question is this like Citadel, one of the most expensive shows ever created, right?
It seems like they're trying to cash in on the same thing. You have like A-list actors, you have a ton of talent behind the camera.
Citadel had like some near sci-fi stuff. It was guys who like it had their brains wiped and then they were exploding trains in the first. It was completely different in the sense of what reality is. This is supposed to be much more grounded and much more drama-driven by, like, just guilt and such, while the other one is literally just a sci-fi show that's masquerading as a spy thriller.
This is based on an actual special ops unit.
Yeah. I'm not completely surprised. We've got Nicole Kidman in there, Zoe Saldana, Laysla De Oliveira. I'm not pronouncing the S in her name because I think it's silent. It reminded me less of Citadel, more of Echo 3, Homeland, Jack Ryan, Tehran, those type of spy thrillers.
Yep, I had Condor and Alias.
Alias, it falls into the Citadel camp again because it's like that was so sci-fi. There was stuff going on where, yes, it was supposed to be like the CIA and she was a crazy agent, but like, no, that's not what this show is. Should I just jump into the first episode? All right, the first episode's called Sacrificial Soldiers. And in episode 1, we're meeting the Special Activities Unit. This is the unit that you're saying is based off a real unit in the CIA based in Kobane, Syria. You've got Joe, that's Zoe Saldana, Bobby, Two Cups, Randy, Tex, and Tucker. That's the entire unit. It's a war zone there. They're camped outside this ISIS compound. Joe gets a call from her asset / the mole that's in the ISIS compound feeding them information, but their cupboard has been blown. And so they're requesting extraction, but then you hear screams on the radio. And so Joe has to make this brutal decision to send bombers and blow the place to hell. This entire ISIS compound, including her asset.
And this is the first couple minutes.
It's the first scene. So that's what the sacrificial event is. That's what the sacrificial soldiers. This sets in motion everything, the basis of the entire next 3 episodes. You have Joe's guilt, which over what happened, and that guides her decision making. You have Joe being super bossy because she's, again, feeling guilty, but she also wants to like be a hard ass about it and not take unnecessary chances and almost be cruel to the next asset that she takes in because she wants to make sure that they're so prepared for what they're getting into, right? But before we see any of that play out, we get the intro and then a 4-year backflash to Cruz Manuelos, who is Layla De Oliveira, and she's flipping burgers for minimum wage.
Wait,
this is going to be the weirdest
different.
recruitment story you've ever heard. So she's flipping burgers. She lives with her abusive boyfriend. She used to be a stripper. Her life is absolute shit. People constantly call her a bitch. Her boyfriend punches her in the nose. And so she wakes up the next day with a frying pan and pans his face a couple times. And then she runs for it. He's chasing her down the street. And then he finally catches up to her as she, wait for it, dives into a Marine recruitment center.
Wait, dives into
So she
building?
jumps in. Well, I mean, it's just a store. So she runs into the store. The boyfriend follows her. He's like, this is between me and her. And obviously you have these just really buff Marine there being like, no, it's not. It's between you and the U.S. Army. And so she's saved by that Marine. The boyfriend breaks the glass. He leaves. Turns out, though, because she's about to sign up for the Marines now, she's a natural. She can do 22 pull-ups, which most men can't do. 114 push-ups in 3 minutes. Also, most men can't do that. Yeah. She runs 1.5 miles in 8 minutes. Now, the only part that we ever get to see is like a cut of her doing the 22 pull-ups. I would have rather seen either of the other 2 exercises because seeing 114 push-ups in 3 minutes would have been pretty impressive for a camera.
I know that they did a lot of strength training when they were doing this show.
Yeah, but this isn't like Gladiator or what was that show? Spartacus. It wasn't like where they were actually taking gladiator camps. She I don't think, could do 114
I mean, Layla De Oliveira, who played Cruz, said that they did strength training, hand-to-hand combat, and then on set, Jared Shaw, a Navy SEAL for 9 years, trained her for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Well, it seemed more like she was trained at getting the shit beaten out of her, but that doesn't come into play until episode 2. We zoom forward to Joe in the future. Remember, Joe is Zoe Saldana. She's getting berated by Michael Kelly from House of Cards for losing her asset in scene 1.
Yes. His name is Byron from this TV show.
He doesn't show up again, so I thought it was just a one-off by him.
He's okay.
Yeah, he literally doesn't show up. We get very little Nicole Kidman as well. In the 3rd episode, we do see the guy from Weeds. His name is Michael something or other. You know who I'm talking about, the detective?
Mr. Wonderbread for it, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderbread. Yeah, all right. So Joe goes back home to lick her wounds, and then she's back the very next day to meet Cruz. She strips her, and why does she strip her? Because her previous asset was found out because she had a tattoo of a cross, and she didn't. And so Joe wants to make sure that never happens again.
Right, okay.
And then she tells her that if she gets caught, that she'll have to save herself. So she's making no promises. And then she explains what the Lioness team does, which what they do is they get close to the wives and girlfriends of known terrorists to spy on them, which reminded me a lot of Spy/Master, that series that I really liked, that talked about how that guy would like plant bugs in the girlfriend's bags of people that like were high up in the Soviet leadership or whatever. And so, yeah, that's what this whole entire special ops team does.
Right, because, a lot of terrorist groups like to target women just because of different spiritual beliefs. It's a lot easier for them to make it through security. Like, if, for example, the U.S. troops, whenever they're at any type of checkpoints, cannot check the women's bags.
Yeah.
So a lot of times women are simply allowed to pass through.
I believe it, but I also believe that women would be very, especially in these type of countries, in Syria, in the Middle East, they would be very suspicious of any Americans who are trying to make friends with them. So I keep that in mind as well. Joe's, she has like this mind callus that's going on. It's thick as fuck because she refuses to talk any personal shit with Cruz. She just does not want to get close to this girl. Cruz meets up with the team in Kuwait. They all get drunk together, and the next morning she wakes up with a hangover, but it doesn't matter because they're rolling out, and Cruz's mission is to meet her mark, become friends, yada, yada, yada. The problem is she hardly has any of the bare facts about her own identity down, something that you would think that the show would have, that she would have been practicing along the way.
I feel like it would have been as drilled in as Counterpart was, where the duo or the counterpart would have been able to know the facts it was right at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, well, I think it was such a split decision to bring her on. There really is no excuse why she didn't know about her own identity, but they did give an excuse why she doesn't know who her mark is until the very last second, because they want her surprise or her knowledge about that person to be very limited, as if they were first meeting for the first time, so that she doesn't give away. She doesn't want her to refer to her by her name if she had never been told her name. So you would think that this would be an interesting scene to kind of see how Cruz would get to infiltrate her way into this person's life. Nope.
Wait, it's not?
Not really. It's super easy. Like, she just goes into the jewelry shop that Aaliyah, I think is her name, is just buying, or no, she's not buying jewelry. She's just looking at it because women can't buy jewelry. That's what she tells Cruz. And then they immediately strike up a friendship to the point where they exchange numbers. But we don't even see the part where they exchange numbers because by the end of the episode, they're just talking about how great she did.
Yeah, that's the end of the first episode.
That's the end of the first episode. And look, I'm feeling okay about the show. It's got pilot pains. There's stuff with Joe's family that was meh. It feels a little like some characters were stereotypes. The ending was odd, like I just said, but the action scene was cool to start it off. And overall, I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Okay, I know that you have said before that Taylor Sheridan pilots, you're not able to tell how good they're going to be.
But I really liked 1883. And the pilot to 1883.
Yes, but when you watch the rest of the series, I think that you said it became
indicative
daunting.
of what comes next. And so I was very curious what I would see in episode 2, which is called The Beating. And do you want to hear my thoughts on that?
Yes.
All right. So The Beating, Special Ops doesn't go off the rails. It instead stops the train and then it blows it to smithereens.
Wow, okay.
Here's the deal. No one wants to see a show that's called Special Ops and then watch a melodramatic family drama for 20 minutes. And that's what the second episode does. It is the worst episode of TV I have seen since Hijack.
I was going to say, is it worse than Hijack?
No, because the plot holes in Hijack were worse and they can't be beat.
Okay.
But all the things that they had going for it in that first episode, the action, the stakes, the mystery on how Cruz will get close to Aaliyah, none of that is present in episode 2. Instead, we get this overwrought, cringy, overacted family soap. And I kind of knew that might be coming because in the credit sequence, we get one of the main actresses is the daughter of Joe, and there's absolutely no reason for her to be in that unless they were going to make the family aspect a way bigger deal than they did in the first episode. And so I get it. Joe's job makes her home life hard. We've seen that in everything from what was the Jeremy Renner movie where he's blowing up bombs.
The Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker, yeah, like that's been done forever. But like they covered it in one scene in the first episode. We don't need 10 more episodes of it. And this is supposed to be an action international spy thriller, but everything's episode 2 and episode 3 take place mostly in the U.S.
The show was called Special Ops until actually May of 2023. That's when they decided to add Lioness onto the title. And they may have realized that they needed to do that just so that people wouldn't have like maybe the wrong interpretation, or they could have more of a reason as to why they centered it in the U.S. I
thought it was just more because Taylor Sheridan has always done like male-centric shows. This is the first one where he has 2 female leads. He's had one female lead.
I was going to say 1883.
That's one female lead, but it was juxtaposed with her dad, who I forgot who played him, but that was someone famous as well.
Yeah, it was a singer.
Yeah, it was who?
It was a singer.
Oh, it was a... Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. It was a singer. Anyways, all right. So for the first 5 minutes of this episode, her husband, Neil, that's who we get to follow. He's a pediatric neurosurgeon, because why the fuck not? His first scene in episode 2 is that he has to tell a family of a 6-year-old girl that she has a tennis ball-sized tumor in her head and that they can either remove her eye and try to cut it out, but they should probably just let her die.
Wait, what?
Yes, that's what the first 5 minutes is. And then he gets a call from his daughter's school. She's been suspended because she got in a fight. And when he tries to talk to her about it, she gets mad at him because he wouldn't understand what happened because he's white.
Wait, okay.
Yeah, so there's the cringe. So then Joe shows up. Zoe Saldana shows up. Her husband is out by the pool, and he tells her this sad story about not the girl, the 6-year-old girl, but this high school girl who had her face cheese grated by asphalt because of a car accident and that died on the operating table while getting a face transplant. Joe then goes to talk to her daughter, not about the fact that she got into a fight and got suspended, but
to tell her the story?
Just to tell her about how tough her dad's day has been and why she shouldn't be mad at her dad, and also to give her back her phone, the only thing that her dad had taken as punishment, and just been like, look at how hard an ass I am as a parent. Here's your phone back. It made no sense. Then Joe and Neil have sex for what feels like the 4th time in the series. Remember, we've only had one big action scene, and that's not the type of action that I'm talking about. So at this point, I'm just like, when are we getting to the actual story here? Like, I thought that the Cruz storyline was where we were going to take off after episode 1's cliffhanger.
And this is going to only be 8 episodes.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like 10.
No, it's only going to be 8.
I know you're supposed to dislike the kid, but I hate the kid. Like, I remember in season 2 of Homeland, where the kid got a lot of crap because they made her one of the central parts of the show.
Yeah.
And the daughter of the guy who was sort of a double agent terrorist guy. And this kid is way worse. And it's not her fault. It's Taylor Sheridan's fault. He doesn't know how to write kids. We'll get into that more in the 3rd episode.
Interesting you say that.
The second half rolls around. Does it get better? Not by much, unfortunately. So, remember in The Americans, first season, or maybe even the 2nd season, the Russians kidnapped Phil and Elizabeth and tortured them to see if they would break under pressure.
That was like the middle of the 1st season.
Thank you. And the big twist was that they were Russians and that there was never any, like, it wasn't like the Americans had caught them.
Margot Martindale walks out. And,
yes,
yeah,
and it's a big surprise. It was a good episode, I thought, even if it was a bottleneck one. The difference is here. They tell us at the very start, there's a short scene between Zoe Saldana and Nicole Kidman, Joe and Kate. And Joe is literally ordering that even though Cruz is already in the middle of a mission, that she goes through this intense training exercise where she gets tortured. And so we see her set this up, and then we see Cruz get kidnapped while she's jogging back in the U.S., and they drag her out to like this place that looks like Alcatraz. They zip tie her. They strip her with a pressure washing jet. Like she literally, you know those jets that are so strong that they like are able to clean things on the road?
Right.
They use that to take her panties off, which this is the 2nd episode. Like the 1st episode when they stripped her, it was like, okay, I get it, the tattoo thing. The 2nd episode, it's like, what do you, like, is Taylor Sheridan really just getting off on this? Like they keep on mentioning it. Like
it felt like there was no need for it.
It was torture. It was just, we see her get frozen after they've like washed her. We see them play loud music. We see her get waterboarded. She gets the shit knocked out of her.
It just feels like torture porn at this point.
It's called The Beating for a reason. Joe comes in halfway through to explain to Cruz what's going on, and that defeats the entire purpose, you would think. Like the whole idea is that she's supposed to think that she's been like picked up by the bad guys
to see how far her pain would take her before she actually speaks.
Because Joe's whole excuse for this entire thing is like, I need to know exactly how hard or far they will push you before you break, how much time I have to save you, which makes no sense because she's already been tortured for like a day at this point. So if she needs a day to go find her, like they've kept her there and they beat her up and it's this team that's like, it's unsanctioned really. And so in the end, the team ends up calling it off, even though Joe wants to continue. And then Joe drives Cruz back, but not to the apartment she was staying at, this time to the place where the rest of the team is. Right. So that, and it's like this army encampment place. And so they all have their own like separate room. And as soon as the rest of the team hears about this and they don't know that Joe's the one who set up the beating, they know what team kidnapped Cruz, and so they go to the bar where apparently everybody hangs out, and they start getting into this giant bar fight, and that's where Cruz, who's like literally wailing on the guy who did the worst torture to her, she gets a phone call from Aaliyah from the 1st episode, who we haven't seen, and Aaliyah just invites her out, and she's like, "Oh no, I've been in a car accident, but I'll show up."
During the fight?
No. Cruz says that to her, so that she can explain all the injuries that she has.
Okay.
Again, it would make sense that you test your asset before you start the mission so that she doesn't just suddenly appear with a bunch of welts and bruises. But again, that gets into the 3rd episode. This episode was trash. It deserves to be rated low. It was a 2 out of 10 for me.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so you've had a 6 out of 10, which is barely passing, and then you just gave this episode a 2 out of 10.
So episode 3 is important. Yeah.
I'm surprised episode 2 was so bad because they released the first 2 episodes on the same day.
It was awful, but mostly for that family stuff. We did not need to see it. I don't know why they're including it other than that they want to make it kind of a procedural where you're getting just so much more insight on Joe. But her family life, I could not care less about, and yet they feel like we need to see it all.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Dave Annabelle, who plays Neil, he also played Lee Dunn in Yellowstone in like 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And as we mentioned before, Taylor Sheridan, a lot like Christopher Nolan, always likes to take actors that he's cast in other things.
Sure.
And
but he's a
again.
pointless character. He adds nothing. And
well,
again,
it
Special
seems...
Ops Lioness, you could have taken this and had it take place all in a different country and just had it be like Tehran, where it was literally just a spy running around the entire time. I thought that's what we were getting.
My question is that you said that the daughter, she was really bad.
Really
and
bad,
that it was really more for the writing of Taylor Sheridan. Taylor Sheridan has made a ton of episodes. It seems like he always puts that daughter character or a kid character into the television show. He's done it with Yellowstone, really the Yellow-centric universe. And so my question is, like, why? So what makes you think that her character was it just the fact that she was writing Joe?
She's insufferable. Like, no, her entire arc is just to be snooty and sarcastic and rude. In this episode, Joe walks in on her making out on the couch and gets very mad at the boy that she's making out with and kicks him out of the house, and only to find out that Neil and Kate have an arrangement for how far they can go, her boyfriend and her.
Yeah.
It's weird. And then also Kate says the line, I believe it's something or like, I didn't ask you to give birth to me, and because of that, you have no right to tell me what to do.
Oh, God. Okay.
Here's the thing. I just don't think that Sheridan knows how to write modern day teenagers. And even though, like, Elsa from 1883, like you said, Isabel May, she did a great job. Great actress. But by the end of the series, if you watch the entire thing, it is pretty clear that her character is just a stubborn, boy-crazy teen who gets in over her head. Like, as great as it started off, even that character was pretty weak by the end. Mm-hmm. But also, Taylor Sheridan doesn't know how to write doctors either. Like,
yeah,
Neil's storyline is
tumor thing. That's just crazy.
Well, every time that he comes home, he hangs out by the pool and complains about his job and is just depressed. Even when Joe comes out there the night that she finds her daughter making out with this other kid, Neil's in an argument with some other surgeon with like a wine glass and just like berating the guy because of how bad he is at his job. I just think that Sheridan might want to stay to his own lane and that he's branching out just a bit too far right now.
Well, the craziness is that Yellowstone, as we talked about in when we did our 1923 review, that show, it seems like a lot of fans have kind of jumped ship because season 4 and season 5, they said it got really long in tooth. 1923 still has season 2 to go. That has gotten good reviews. But then you have Mayor of Kingstown. It's like kind of, that's mixed reviews. Tulsa King, I know that it originally had a higher IMDb score than when it went down, and this I'll just give away what the IMDb score is right now, 7.5. That is Taylor Sheridan's lowest TV show up until this point, and this just came out.
Yeah, and it's still higher than I would give it. That second episode really deserved it to be knocked down to like a 6 or something as far as IMDb is concerned. The other storyline that we get in this Bruise Like a Fist episode, that's the name of it,
right.
Cruz finally gets close to her mark, Aaliyah, and so she goes to Chesapeake, again, still in the U.S., and there's this private estate there. Aaliyah's waiting there with her rich, nosy, freeloading friends. And it reminds me a lot of like You Season 3, where the character ends up in this rich elite class and one of the rich people like adopts him, and so like he's constantly just around these freeloading like or trust fund babies. So that's kind of where Cruz is, except she's completely bruised up. She's the lioness in the lion's den because the property is outfitted with just tons of cameras and security, and they're even matching her face to make sure she is what her identity says she is, which I think she's going by someone named Zura or something. The problem is, though, that they want to go swimming. The main girl, Aaliyah, wants to go swimming, and so she insists that Cruz puts on this like really skimpy bathing suit. Another reason to get her
so this
without
is now
her clothes on.
The third episode where they've done that.
And this time she's like not even looking good because of all the bruises, right? And as soon as Aaliyah sees that, she calls a doctor, and she's like, "You have to get checked out." And the doctor looks at her bruises and contusions, and he's like, "This is not consistent with a car accident. You have been beaten up. These are fist-sized." That is his exact words. So that's why the episode is called Bruised Like a Fist. And so then Joe, hearing that on the mic, because of course Cruz is, she's bugged, she's like, "My bad." Joe takes responsibility for like this beat up like 3 times, but every time she's just like, what you gonna do?
And they don't do anything to reprimand
all her team, because she's the one in charge.
Well,
her team is kind of pissed off about it, but like, what?
My question is, you haven't mentioned someone named Edwin Mullins yet. Do they show up in the show?
Who's he played by?
Morgan Freeman.
Oh, no, he's not in the show
Morgan
yet.
Freeman isn't in the show yet?
Hasn't walked in yet.
I thought that he would be in every episode, because not only is he Morgan Freeman, but it seems like he would be the main person.
I think I would have known if he was up there.
He's been in all the promotional posters and everything like that.
I bet he is,
so,
yeah.
Okay, that's kind of crazy they haven't introduced him yet. Anyways.
Yeah, okay, so back to Cruz's storyline. You've got all the friends of Aaliyah staying at the beach house place, right? And one of them is Sammy. He's just one of these two guys, these two bros. And he tries to sexually assault Cruz. And even though Cruz, again, is all beat up, Cruz can defend herself. And the security on camera catches Sammy being a dick. And so the next day, Sammy isn't there anymore. Sammy has been sent back to wherever he's from. And Cruz is invited by Aaliyah and her fiance on a private jet, and they're off to go somewhere. And that's where we're kind of left in suspense as to where exactly they're going. And so is the team, the on-field team. They're wondering where they're going to follow their asset to.
And that's the end of the third episode?
Yes. However, we get a side storyline that doesn't really involve anything else except that Joe's colleague or ex-colleague asks for a few of her team to rent them out to go find his asset in like the middle of the desert. His asset has been arrested by the police, and he needs to get them back before they start spilling the beans, right? And so their plan, and this is actually the very, like Sheridan's bread and butter. This is the best part of the episode. It's the last 10 minutes. So we got Kyle, this is Joe's ex-friend, and you've got the three people from Joe's team, including Two Cup. So they're tailing the police truck. Their whole idea is we intercept, we grab the guy, we leave, right? And they also have an EMP. So as soon as they find a good place, they're going to hit that EMP. The trucks are going to stall out. They're going to grab the guy and they're going to run, right? But then they realize someone else is tailing the truck, probably another set of bad guys. And so they hit the EMP. The bad guy's truck goes screaming into like a 16-wheeler and it explodes. And then they grab the guy from the sheriff's mobile and they stick him in the back of the trunk. There's bullets fire everywhere. And then this other truck starts chasing them. And it's a whole like Michael Bay scenario. It's the best action scene since the first action scene in the first episode, which again was an A. That was a good action scene. This is a good action scene. Taylor Sheridan should have just made this the plot the entire time. And so I give the whole episode a 4 out of 10. And that's because I'm feeling nice.
That is insane, because when I started this off asking this or Citadel, and I thought no matter what you thought of Special Ops Lioness, you were going to give it a higher score than Citadel. If you remember, you gave the pilot or maybe the first couple episodes of Citadel a 4, but you've given the first episode a 6, second episode a 2, third episode a 4. That evens out to a 4 in the end.
Yeah. Yep.
I did not think that you were going to not like this show.
I mean, think about it. The last episode was a bathing suit drama over something that has to, and Zoe Saldana just being mad at stuff. We do get like a really short in between Martin Donovan and Nicole Kidman. That's the guy from Weeds. And so Kate and Errol, I believe, are the names in the show. And they're talking about how Aaliyah is probably connected to OPEC money. That's oil money.
Yeah.
And the guy is like a billionaire who they're going to eventually get. But we have no like movement on that plot besides the fact, like, I'm not even convinced why Cruz and Aaliyah even kicked it off to begin with, or why they're still friends. It just feels weird. Also, and this isn't really too much of a dig because it doesn't matter too much, but like, there's so many gender neutral names, Joe, Cruz, Bobby, Sammy, that it makes identifying people when you're first trying to like learn names very difficult.
Yeah, no, I can understand
There's
that.
2 Kates, I think.
Zoe Saldana, she originally read the pilot. She said that she really enjoyed it, and then she walked away. She did not want anything to do with it. And then when she was working on a different Netflix series called Scratch, I think that came out last year with its first season, she kept on thinking about Special Ops. She called up Taylor Sheridan, and then Taylor Sheridan was like, "We've been waiting for you." So it was like Zoe Saldana was the main person that they wanted to get for this thing. But then Nicole Kidman also just kind of wanted to be part of the TV show as well. She was going to be an executive producer, and then she wanted a part. So I think a huge reason for this TV show is, like I was saying before, kind of with Citadel, the cast that they were able to get for this thing. And maybe it just didn't work out that well, because you're not the only person that hasn't liked this. On Rotten Tomato, it has a Rotten score of 56%. The audience score has been 73%, but it seems like there's been a whole variety of different reviews. USA Today gave it 2 out of 4 stars, saying, "This isn't Zero Dark 30, this isn't even American Sniper. This is Dallas in Syria.
But it's not in Syria. It's just Dallas. It's a soap opera. I agree with that. Yes.
And then you have Empire. They gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and they said, despite stretching plausibility, Taylor Sheridan's series mixes explosive espionage action with domestic issues to mostly absorbing effect. That was me hoping that you were maybe going to enjoy the show, and then The Wrap gave it a positive review, kind of crediting the acting and the writing. Sheridan did end up taking over for someone who you haven't liked TV shows from before, Thomas Brady. They've worked on Hell on Wheels, Colony, which I know you like, but also Nosferatu. So it makes me wonder.
The only one of the 3 I was really against was Nosferatu, and that's because I read the book.
Well, I thought, Hell on Wheels, I thought you weren't a big fan of either.
I think I've only watched like 1 episode, and that was 10, 12 years ago. Yeah, I don't think that's indicative of like what I think of the person. Yeah, I think that you're right that Taylor Sheridan has just become spread too thin. He's now trying to branch into things that he doesn't write very well, and I don't blame him for Yellowstone, sort of. I mean, it's in its 6th season at this point?
They're going to do part 2 of season 5, which Kevin Costner has said he's not going to be a part of.
So I don't think that's his fault as much as just the show maturing to a point where it no longer is as entertaining.
Well, I said in 1923, if you have 6 Better Call Sauls, like Better Call Saul worked, but when you have 6 of them, or even more, because he's even planning another Yellowstone spinoff with Matthew McConaughey possibly attached as the main character, it just seems like that, along with all the other not even Yellowstone shows, and I think he's planning on doing a couple movies too, like Jenna Ortega and some other people are attached to it. It just seems like I called him the most like hardworking man in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But usually you need to see some effect of that, and it just seems like the last few TV shows he's come out with have kind of dipped in quality.
Are you also telling me that this Special Ops has nothing to do with the Indian show Special Ops?
Well, that actually was leading to my last point. I think that part of the reason for the name change, Special Ops Lioness, is that they were maybe thinking about branching this out, much like Citadel was thinking about, with like different parts of the world doing their own type of Citadel. I don't have anything to back this up, but I think the reason they might have added Lioness was because they wanted to maybe try and do something similar to that.
It's just that when I realized that, I thought it was going to be like Your Honor. You know how that was like originally an Israeli show or something that they moved over?
No, I think you're talking about like the 2020 show that came out, and it was on Amazon Prime. This has no connection with that.
No connection whatsoever. All right. Well, that'll do it, I think, for the review. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.